Around early 1910, the South Korean Empire was officially under rule by the Japanese, and the occupation of South Korea would last until 1945, which was the end of World War II. In 1876, the Japan-Korea Treaty was made, and it was said to integrate South Korea politically and economically, thus Japan overruling South Korea. Everything shifted in 1905 when the Japanese made yet another treaty called the Japan-Korea Treaty of 1905, after Imperial Japan won the Russo-Japanese War. That same year, the treaty was made so that if South Korea was ever under any attack or threat, Japan would take control of the country. In 1910, Japan took control of South Korea. Once Japan had officially taken control of Korea, the Japanese military began taking Korean men into the war through blackmail, while Japanese soldiers would force South Korean women into comfort camps and would intimately abuse women that got forced into being comfort women for Japanese soldiers and the South Korean soldiers in the war as well. These comfort camps, also known as comfort stations, were located in Japanese-occupied China. As the war began to shift more southeast of Asia, the women would end up in those locations as well. Multiple of the women settled in these occupations were almost as young as 13 and at the oldest 21. Japanese soldiers would strike the South Korean women if they were to oppose the soldiers. Some even tried to leave, but many, if not all, comfort stations were surrounded in barbed wire. This caused them to not have that ability to leave. Former comfort woman Kim Buk-dong went through a number of situations, giving an explanation about her experience as a comfort woman with Asian boss. Kim Buk-dong, at age 91, said the soldiers forced me to go even though I fully didn't want to. They needed more young women, so I left as the Japanese officers promised my mom that once I was old enough to marry, I would return back home to her. If I didn't go, we would be exiled from Korea. I had no other choice. I went onto a boat in Busan with a bunch of girls around 16 to 20 years old. I was only 14 at the time. We could hardly move on the boat. After a few days on the boat, we got onto another heading towards Taiwan, then another towards China. Nothing seemed wrong to me because I was young. Once we arrived in China, we got off the boat, and the Japanese soldiers there thought I was too young, but they still made me go inside a large building and get my frame inspected. Once that was over, I was given a small room. A few times I got dragged to rooms and beaten up when I was older. Another girl by the name of Kimiko Kaneda was a comfort woman at the age of 16, when a friend of hers persuaded Kimiko from her current job as a maid to become a comfort woman, as it was a better job suited for her. Kimiko didn't know what she got into as she took the job. Kimiko would get beaten along with other girls who resisted the soldiers, and eventually she died. Many South Korean men also were forced into the war by the government. If Korean men refused, they would also get prison, manual labor, blacklisting, etc. as punishment. Many of the Japanese women also became workers, prostitutes, nurses, cooks, etc. for the men working in the military. Long before World War II, Japan was at war with Manchuria, which started in 1931, and China in 1937. Eventually, the war ended up in Europe when the Germans decided to invade Poland. When Japan started to invade the Philippines with the inexperienced Korean and Japanese soldiers, the Philippine soldiers were also poorly trained. By the end of the war, Japan had invaded 12 of the country's 48 provinces, but many Korean and Japanese fighters had passed on. The South Korean president at the time, Ri Song-man, was trying to make Japan come clean, but for years after the war, No one documented the past of comfort women until the 1980s, when Korean women started to share their tragic stories based on their past. More years to come as more women shared their stories, and finally in 1993, the Japanese government took the liberty to realize what happened with the military. At the end, around 100,000 women were abused intimately within those times. On February 9, 2018, South Korean President Moon Jae-in and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe met to discuss more comfort women and to avert new comfort women issues that have been dug up. President Moon and Minister Abe wanted to get over past conflicts and, quote, maintain future-oriented cooperation while looking squarely at history. Shinzo Abe in 2017 wanted to give the surviving comfort women an $8 million support fund, but the survivors did not want it. They wanted a more sincere apology. Later it was found that South Korea would not accept the money and would support the women with their own funds. Recently at the 2018 Winter Olympic Games held in Pyeongchang, South Korea, some South Koreans spoke out about the Japanese and said they demanded an official apology, seeing as they never got one from Japan. Surprisingly enough, they didn't ask the Japanese, as they wanted it from NBC after NBC had made a statement saying that South Korea's economic growth was due to Japan's cultural, technological, and economic example, which was spreading to South Korea. Another recent event was with the South Korean group BTS and the member Jimin. Jimin was caught wearing a shirt that had an image of America bombing Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This outraged many Japanese, and it created conflict through the result of BTS not doing a reality show in Japan, but still doing their Japanese tour. When BTS held a concert in the Osaka Dome, many fans still went and the dome was still sold out, but you could see protesters on the site of the concert. Kyocera Dome, located in Osaka, has a capacity of 55,000 seats. They all sold out on the first day in a matter of 5 minutes. The member Jimin did not talk about the shirt at all during the concert. This proves that Japan has also faced a backlash from South Korea, and Japan also still often doesn't get along with South Korea. Many Koreans and Japanese don't hate the other race, but they do have sensitive topics that may be bad to talk about, as this could cause another big uproar between the two countries. Go